We shall see. Murdo Fraser followed by Claire Baker. Mr Fraser.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I start by thanking the Labour Party for bringing forward this debate on support for Scotland's tourism and hospitality sectors. And the importance of these sectors cannot be overstated. They are particularly important in rural parts of the country, including areas such as Perth and Kinross and Fife that I represent in this place. And tourism is the largest employer in Scotland overall, but in rural communities the impact is much greater. And it is a sector which has had a rollercoaster ride over the past year. The initial restrictions in the spring caused a crisis in the sector, followed by hope in the summer. With the easing of restrictions, with many people taking holidays at home rather than travelling abroad, there was a boom in tourism in many parts of the country, and that was boosted by schemes such as the Eat Out to Help Out scheme from the Chancellor Rishi Sunak. But now we see new restrictions being introduced. And I've heard too many deeply depressing stories just in the last few weeks of cancelled bookings as a result of new travel restrictions being introduced, and individuals who have spent their lives building up a business now fearing for the future. Just yesterday, it was announced that both Perth and Kinross and Fife will move from Tier 2 to Tier 3, with new restrictions on travel and hospitality, making an already serious situation even more difficult. And this is where the Scottish Government needs to step in. It needs to use the substantial resources that have been put at its disposal to provide more direct support for hospitality. And let me just make this clear, both to the Scottish Government and to SNP backbenchers. At the start of the last month, additional funding by the UK Government to the Scottish Government was a guaranteed £6.5 billion. Since then, just over the last few weeks, that figure has gone up. We've seen an additional funding provided of another £1.7 billion. And that money has not been allocated, according to what the Finance Secretary said just a few hours ago in this chamber. And that means there are currently hundreds of millions of pounds sitting in the Scottish Government's bank account unallocated, money that is available to help the sector. They need to stop sitting on this money and start paying it out to those in need. Otherwise, a health crisis is going to become a jobs catastrophe. Now, Presiding Officer, there are two specific sectors that need assistance that I want to highlight. And the first is the pub sector that Colin Smith referred to in his remarks. But there are many pubs in the area I represent that do not have outside space and do not serve food, and therefore effectively had to close a few weeks ago when restrictions were brought in. And yet they were only able to access precisely one half of the grant support available to those in the Central Belt, £2,155 as against £4,310 for pubs in Glasgow or Edinburgh. That's an issue the Scottish Government needs to address and make sure there is a level playing field. And the second sector of businesses that have been hard hit and have seen very little support are those involved in the wedding industry. Wedding venues have seen virtually their entire business for the year disappear. I've heard of weddings which were booked for the spring of this year, cancelled and then rebooked for the autumn, cancelled and then rebooked again for spring 2021, and where brides are now being contacted by venues and being told that that date cannot be guaranteed. It is a disaster for wedding venues who are having to survive on zero income with no certainty for the future and no ability to take forward bookings or deposits. And there is a wider knock-on impact from the cancellation of weddings to all sorts of other businesses, to taxi businesses, to wedding dress suppliers, to florists, to those involved in marquee hire and cater hire. Gordon's Cater Hire in Blairgowrie wrote to me this week, raising concerns about the lack of a clear route out of restrictions and how the sector has not had specific support when it has been made available to others. Already one company in this sector has been forced into liquidation this week, and the fear that others will follow unless more can be done to assist. Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government does have more money at its disposal. It needs to start using that money to support businesses on the brink of collapse. It needs to step up and start delivering. Thank you.